Welcome to the Kennedy Center Performing Arts Series. My name is Colleen Sinnett Jennings, Professor of Theater at American University. I'm joined today by the director and members of the cast of the Gate Theatre Dublin's production of Waiting for Godot that is being performed to sold-out audiences at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C., and then touring to several other cities across the United States. Let me introduce you to our guests this afternoon. Alan Stanford, who plays Pazzo. Stephen Brennan, who plays Lucky. Johnny Murphy, who is Estragon, or Gogo. Barry McGovern, who is Vladimir, or Didi. And Walter Asmus, who is the director of this production. Gentlemen, welcome. I'm guessing that some of our viewers may have read the play once or are about to read the play. This is certainly one of the most important plays in the Western theatrical canon. Help us out a little bit. What's at the heart of this play? What is the message? What is the playwright trying to communicate?
A long pause ensues in true Beckettian fashion. I suppose the great thing about this play is that it tries to discuss the human condition in a very realistic but very simplified way, and tries to go to the heart of what being on this earth with fellow human beings means. And it is a reduction of what that experience is that makes it something wonderful and something that is endlessly discussed, because it is, as an old English critic, Harold Hobson, once said, the play is not an appeal to reason, nor is it a puzzle. To search for its meaning will reduce to futility the acutest intellect, just as yielding to its exquisite ordering of ideas, its echoes and its associations will exalt the humblest spirit. And in that, like most great works of modern art, you don't put an essay beside every picture and explain what it's about. You allow the audience to engage with it and to respond and to feel its echoes, its resonances. And in Godot there are a great many, as you can imagine, for everybody.
It's an expression what I find beautiful about, poetically beautiful about it, just in its form and structure, is that within its walls, as it were, it seems to examine all the potential that life can offer you. And it is an expression of life in that the process of life is a process of waiting, which he also brings down to an absolute simple crystallization. I mean, that Pazzo presents and that Vladimir picks up on, which is they give birth astride of a grave. The light gleams an instant, and then it's night once more. The question, I suppose, that one could say is that the play asks is what happens in that brief moment of light. You get born, you live, you die. What do you do in the meantime? You wait.
But we share the things that we do in the meantime, which is we all have to eat and we all have to go to the loo. They are things we all share.
Yes.
in that gap.
That brief moment. Yes, yes.
But we also should try and have as much fun as possible, of course.
Of course.
Yes.
And that's what the two boys try and do in their waiting.
Their inventiveness, they come up with things to do while they're waiting. Great.
The child that is in them is very evident. That men, no matter how great or pompous they may become, as in Pazzo, they remain needing children. That the needs of a child still remain in all of these characters,
yes,
no matter how great or how poor or humble.
Walter, in terms of tackling this as a director, I know that you worked with Beckett and you were a friend of his. What insight did that give you into the play in terms of knowing the man?
Watching him working, you find out that he was very precise, that he had visualized his play extremely precisely, and that he tried to put across the music of the play. And in this respect, I think it was very important to have worked with him. He never gave explanations, as my colleagues do here. It's very intelligent what they say about it. He never did that himself. He simply relied on the structure of the play and the text, and he said, you find everything in the text. If you read it thoroughly, you will find what it is about. And for me, it was this very important thing that we worked on, about the timing, on certain technical aspects, which came together in a very complex structure and became a piece of music altogether by this.
Yes, the technical demands are quite substantial. Would you talk a little bit about that from the point of view of actors, working with that very precise timing and the music of the play?
Yes, it is just like a piece of music that if there is one slip up with dialogue, it's like a piece of music that's just gone flat.
Yes.
And it always reminds me of jazz. And I know a lot of musicians who actually love Godot because of the beats, the rhythms, the rondo. Let's go, we can't, why not, we're waiting for Godot. And that is the attraction for musicians.
Sure, sure. And Barry, I think you were talking earlier about the playing with the audience, and depending on their reaction, it also affects the timing and the music of the play. How so?
Well, yeah, I think that's the same with every play. The thing about live performance is that every night is going to be slightly different, because it's not just what you do in the rehearsal room, it's the interaction between the players and the audience. And sometimes you get a very dead audience who don't seem to be responding to the play. It doesn't mean they're not enjoying it. They may be enjoying it very quietly and seriously in their own way. And you get another audience like one we had last night, which was very responsive to the comedy in the play. And it certainly took me aback, because we've done this play so many times, but there were certain lines last night that people laughed at that they never laughed at before. And it is difficult sometimes to time the rhythm of the piece, because I agree with Johnny and the others, it's like a piece of music.
There's a sort of fundamental truth about theatre, I suppose, that a good play should represent itself to every individual watching it, and you should, in the best of all possible worlds, you should be able to take from a play its truths as they apply to you, whether it be Shakespeare or whatever. The thing about this play that I always find and have found working on it over the years is that there's something so essentially pure about each moment in the play that it can apply with great simplicity to anybody if they listen to it. As Walter was saying, that Beckett said himself, it's all in the words. If you read it, if you actually listen to it, it will, anybody coming to this play, it's almost like a sort of theatrical process of confession. Come to it with an open, pure heart, or in this sense, an open and pure imagination, and it will embrace you, because whatever is in your experience, you will find within the play. It's quite magic.
Well, let's take a look at a clip now, because I think there's no substitute for actually seeing what we're talking about here. So we're going to take a little bit of a clip from Act 1, and then we'll come back and talk about it.
Nothing to be done.
I'm beginning to come round to that opinion. All my life I've tried to put it from me, saying, Vladimir, be reasonable. You haven't yet tried everything. And I resumed the struggle. So, there you are again.
Am I? I'm glad to see you back. I thought you were gone forever.
Me too.
Together again at last. We'll have to celebrate this. But how? Get up till I embrace you.
Not now, not now.
May one inquire where His Highness spent the night?
In a ditch.
A ditch? Where?
Over there.
And they didn't beat you?
Beat me. Certainly they beat me.
The same lot as usual?
The same, I don't know.
When I think of it, all these years, but for me, where would you be? You'd be nothing more than a little heap of bones at the present minute, no doubt about it.
What of it?
That's too much for one man. On the other hand, what's the good of losing heart now? That's what I say. We should have thought of it 1,000,000 years ago, when the world was young.
Stop blathering and help me off with this bloody thing.
Hand in hand from the top of the Eiffel Tower, among the first. We were presentable in those days. Now it's too late. They wouldn't even let us up.
Oh.
What are you doing?
Taking off my boot. Did that never happen to you?
Boots must be taken off every day. I'm tired telling you that. Why don't you listen to me?
Help me.
It hurts.
Hurts. He wants to know if it hurts.
No one ever suffers but you. I don't count. I'd like to hear what you'd say if you had what I have.
It hurts?
Hurts. He wants to know if it hurts.
You might button it all the same.
True. Never neglect the little things of life.
And what do you expect? You always wait until the last moment.
The last moment. Hope deferred. Make it the something sick. Who said that?
Why don't you help me?
Sometimes I feel it coming all the same. Then I go all queer. How shall I say? Relieved, and at the same time, appalled. Appalled. Funny? Nothing to be done. Well?
Nothing.
Show.
There's nothing to show.
But try and put it on again.
I'll air it for a bit.
There's man all over for you, blaming on his boots the faults of his feet. This is getting alarming. One of the thieves was saved. It's a reasonable percentage. Go.
What?
Suppose we repented.
Repented what?
Oh, we wouldn't have to go into the details.
Our being born?
One daren't even laugh anymore.
Oh, dreadful privation.
Merely smile. Yeah, it's not the same thing. Nothing to be done. Go.
What is it?
Do you ever read the Bible?
The Bible? Yeah, I must have taken a look at
Do
it.
you remember the Gospels?
I remember the maps of the Holy Land. Colour they were. Very pretty. The Dead Sea was pale blue. The very look of it made me thirsty. That's where we'll go, I used to say. That's where we'll go for our honeymoon. We'll swim, we'll be happy.
You should have been a poet.
I was. Isn't that obvious?
Where was I? How's your foot?
Swelling visibly.
Ah, yes, 2 thieves. Do you remember the story?
No.
Shall I tell it to you?
No.
It'll pass the time. 2 thieves crucified at the same time as our Saviour.
Our what?
Our Saviour. 2 thieves. One is supposed to have been saved, and the other... damned.
Saved from what?
Hell.
I'm going.
And yet, how is it... Now, this is not boring you, I hope. How is it that of the 4 evangelists, only one speaks of a thief being saved? The 4 of them were there. Or thereabouts. And only one speaks of a thief being saved. Come on, Go. Return the ball, can't you, once in a way?
I find this really most extraordinarily interesting.
1 out of 4. Of the other 3, 2 don't mention any thieves at all, and the 3rd says that both of them abused him.
Who?
What?
What's all this about? Abused who?
The Saviour.
Why?
Because he wouldn't save them.
From hell?
Imbecile, from death.
And what of it?
And the 2 of them must have been damned.
And why not?
But one of the 4 says that one of the 2 was saved.
They don't agree, that's all there's to it.
But all 4 were there, and only one speaks of a thief being saved. Why believe him rather than the others?
Who believes him?
Everybody. It's the only version they know.
Oh, people are bloody ignorant apes. Charming spot. Inspiring prospects.
Let's go.
We can't.
Why not? We're waiting for Godot.
Oh, yes.
Can you talk a little bit about the nature of the script and working on it, because there are so many patterns and so many repetitions? What does that do for you in terms of being actors? You talked a little bit about if you lose your way or if you just slip up a little bit, it all falls in. What particular attention do you have to pay to some of those patterns that are found in this text?
You have to listen to it. As actors, you don't just say it. You must listen to it. It must. It's not four actors giving four individual performances. I suppose it would be. It's like playing a Beethoven string quartet. It's a parley of instruments and a parley of imaginations as well. And as you listen and watch those sequences of dialogue going, there is a game of language, or a game of language or music as language being played. And the repetitions, as Johnny said earlier, it's the rondo of that particular repetition. Each time it's said will have a freshness and a newness. The words must constantly be new. It is always in the moment, as Walter constantly said to us for many a long year. It is only in the moment. So that they're not repetitions. Each moment is new. Each moment is fresh. Each moment is, Gogo rediscovers why he has to wait again and again and again. The past is forgotten. It is only in the moment. It is only now. So the use of the language in that way is desperately important.
Yes.
There's another language implied. It's not only the text and the words. It's the language of movements. It's the physical language, which was very important to Beckett. He designed it, he talked about it being balletic. He designed it very neatly. So every approach or every crossing and so on is worked out mathematically almost. And in terms, of course, of timing at the same time. So there are long stretches, long walks, and very short approaches, and in terms of rhythm, faster, slower, and so on and so on. And all these movement experiences which match the text and the music of the text. And that is something for him it was very important to have the audience recognize these repetitions in precisely the same way. Of course, they have to be filled by the actors at every moment, but the echoes and repetitions will have an effect for the audience to go deeper into it, to recognize it, and to connect with an earlier situation in the play, and so on and so on. So there are two basic languages, one could say, in the play.
Well, what did you do to prepare for this? Because you as a director have to interpret what's on the page, and it obviously means a lot to you to make sure that you're following the playwright's wishes in terms of what he intended. So how did you prepare for the mounting of this piece?
Oh, I very much relied on his preparations, I must say. I follow his structure, I follow his sketches in this production, very much so. But of course it changes, it loosens a little bit. You can't do it mechanically, you can't repeat mechanically. It has to be lived, and looking at the play, you will find out there are very basic human relationships are implied, you see, and God, it's all about human relationships. It's about love. It's about friendship. It's about frustrations. It's about aggressions which arrive in the situation of waiting. We all know that. We experience that at the supermarket cashier. That we can't wait.
Can the actors talk a little bit about what it's meant for you personally to do this role, whether it's in terms of your craft or your insight into the play? What have you taken away from this on a personal level?
Well, this is a play I've been saying for 18 years that I'll never do again, because I spend 35 minutes bent double and then stand up and do that amazing speech, which is a kind of a piece of verbal jazz.
Yes.
And incidentally, in that speech, the entire play is encapsulated, just in case you want to. But you can work that out for yourselves. But in coming back to the play all the time, it has become for me, I suppose, as close as I've got to a religion, in the sense that the play is brutally honest about life. I mean, it is an existentialist tract. The facts are there. Man is seen to shrink and dwindle, waste and pine, and the earth is an abode of stones. And that is as brutally honest as any man can be about this earth. And I love it for its honesty, and I love it. I don't love it for the pain it gives me. It's like, but it also has this just wonderful attraction in its honesty, in the beauty of these two lost little men, in the pomposity of this lost little man, and this man's ability to see the bigger picture and to accept it. And I think Sam reputedly said about Lucky that, which, I mean, as Walter said, he didn't like explaining things, but the closest he came to explaining why Lucky was called Lucky was that he had no more expectations. Peter O'Toole said he was called Lucky because he had nothing to say in the second act.
Well, he's only got 2 lines. It's just that one of them is very, very long.
Very long.
I mean, what Stephen said about it, it's almost to a degree religious. I found, over the 18 years of playing the part, to me, Pozzo, the aggression of Pozzo is where I started from, and the vulnerability of Pozzo is where I've reached, that he is perpetually vulnerable. In other words, the aggression is still there, but it comes from a different direction. When you do something like this, that you keep revisiting with the same group of people for 18 years, it does take on a different, I suppose, it becomes a different nature of acting, a different nature of theatre. It's not simply a production, it's almost a life journey. So you start to perceive the play very much through your own experience, very much through where am I now, what, you know, in my own life, in my own career, and what each time you come back to the play, you suddenly have a whole new vista. Barry was talking earlier about, you see a movie when you're young, and you don't see it again for another 30 years, but when you do, it's a different movie. The movie hasn't changed, you have. So doing the play has been a wonderful voyage of discovery myself, for me.
Yes.
Just that capacity to re-examine thoughts that you had and thought were absolute and discover aren't.
Well, since we've heard from Lucky and Pozzo, now would be a great time to see this second clip that we have, which features Lucky and Pozzo, and will give you a little bit of insight in terms of what these actors are talking about when they confront their roles. Let's show that clip now.
Let's say no more about it.
Up, pig! Every time he drops, he falls asleep. Up, hog! Back! Stop! Turn! Gentlemen, I am happy to have met you. Yes, yes, sincerely happy. Closer. Stop. The road seems long when one journeys all alone for... Yes. Yes, 6 hours, that's right. 6 hours on end and never a soul in sight. Good. Hold that. touch of autumn in the air this evening. Whip! Yes, gentlemen, I cannot go for long without the society of my likes, even when the likeness is an imperfect one. Stool! Closer. Back. Further. Stop. That is why, with your permission, I propose to dally with you a moment before I venture any further. Basket. The fresh air stimulates the jaded appetite. Basket. Further. He stinks. Happy days.
What ails him?
He looks tired.
And why doesn't he put down his bags?
How do I know? Careful.
Say something to him.
Look!
What?
His neck!
Oh, I say.
A running sore.
It's the rope.
The rubbing.
It's inevitable.
For not.
It's the chafing.
He's not bad looking.
Would you say so?
A trifle effeminate.
Look at the slobber.
It's inevitable.
Look at the slaver.
Perhaps he's a half-wit.
A cretin.
Looks like a goiter.
It's not certain.
He's panting.
It's inevitable.
And his eyes.
What about him?
Goggling out of his head.
Huh? He looks at his last gasp to me.
It's not certain. Ask him a question.
Would that be a good thing?
Well, what do we risk?
Mister.
Louder.
Mister!
Leave him in peace. Can't you see he wants to rest? Basket. Basket. That's better.
Thank you. That was an outstanding clip and also involved both of you as well. Could you pick up on what we were talking about before, about the personal stamp that this play has made on you, on your lives?
I have a memory of going back 30 years ago at least, in another life. And I came upon this play and I could not make head or tail of it. I didn't know what it was about, but I needed the work. So, as they say in Ireland, I chanced my arm. And I was in rehearsals for it, thinking it was hopelessness, pessimism, no way out. And a friend of mine happened to be in the auditorium watching this rehearsal. He was playing Pozzo, actually. And I looked out, and there was tears running down his face. And I met him later. We went for lunch. And I said to him, very politely, I said, "What were you laughing at?" He said, "It is hilarious." I thought, my God almighty, I never saw fun in this. And then when you see that side of it, now you can move in a different direction.
Yes.
And I think it's 75% fun and 25% tragedy, and the two balance each other and play off each other. And on a personal level, it's very difficult to say. I mean, sure, you mine yourself to find out how I delivered this line, what this section is about, the relationship with Vladimir. And I suppose unconsciously you call on things in your own life, you know, to give you that insight into what you're trying to achieve. So that's as best as I could explain it, because it's just such a fabulous piece of work that it's very difficult to put your finger on it. Right. You know?
Right.
That's why Johnny's such a great estragon. He's just described the slowest penny drop of the century. Seeing the comedy in estragon. Yeah. He sees it now.
Well, and thank you for saying that you couldn't make heads or tails of it, because I think people sometimes are afraid to say, I don't know what this means.
Yeah.
So it was great to hear your journey.
The question you ask is incredibly simple, and it is actually impossible to answer. But if you look at the clip we were showing a moment ago, there's a sequence in it of Pozzo attempting to explain something, and there it is in the piece itself that you see the truths that you yourself will take from it, because every one of us at some point in time has felt the need to be precise about what we say, and the frustration of being unable to find exactly the right way to say it, which is exactly what we're doing right now in trying to answer your questions as positively as possible, and the frustration of those who want to actually ask questions and are not allowed to, who want to actually simplify the problem of the interrogation, but are being denied that opportunity. It's in the work itself. It is in, Walter's answer was probably the most intelligent, because it came straight from Sam Beckett, which is, it's there in the work. Read it, look at it, open yourself to it, and you will fit into it. Your own imagination will fit into it. I think, you know, I suspect that all of us sitting here would concur that there's probably infinitely too much analysis and not enough experience of the piece. It is not a piece to analyze, it is a piece to experience.
I think the great thing is really that over 16 years, generations of people have taken to this play and still do. What fascinates me is really that there are young people who never get frustrated out of this show. They always have an insight, they always have fun. They understand infinitely more than we perhaps understand or know about it. Last night, the laughs, from the beginning on, you say there were different laughs and so on. Yeah, but there were young people laughing about certain things a generation before didn't laugh about us. So I think it goes on in this way, in a very positive historical sense, that young people understand more about their lives, about the situation, about the world, and they get more and more from this play in their own understanding and experience with the world. Because it's all in this play, the problems and troubles and the wars and the loves and so on. Everything is contained in this play. That's what it makes so magic.
We were talking
poetic.
Before we began the program. Johnny and I were talking about this. I mean, one of the notions that sort of came out in discussion when we were rehearsing this time, you know, the notion that at the time Beckett wrote the play, that Europe was littered with refugees. People who were displaced, had no home, no identity, nowhere to go, and were simply waiting for something. I'm not saying Beckett wrote the play about that. What I'm saying is that fits into what Beckett wrote, because he wrote about everything by making it so simple it fits every scenario. But Johnny was making the point that there's a scene where in the second act, Lucky and Pozzo come on, they fall over, they're lying on the floor, and for nearly 10 minutes, Pozzo is just simply saying, help. And the two of them debate it. They debate helping. And it's terribly funny. But then if you think of something like 10, 12 years ago, Rwanda, where, or anywhere in the world where genocide or hunger, Darfur at the moment, where there are people dying and are saying help, and the United Nations and the Western governments and the governments of the East debate how will we help them, should we help them, if we help them, would it be correct to help them in this way or in that way, but spend all this time talking about helping and not doing it. And while that's happening, the poor people on the ground are still saying help. Now, I don't believe Beckett actually I don't think any man could realize that what he was writing was so universally, absolutely true. I think had he set out to write a play that was universally, absolutely true, he never would have written it. I think he wrote something with a degree of inspiration about human nature and the human condition, that the world fits into the play, not that the play fits into the world.
Excellent. Well, speaking about that and also speaking about young people, I got a wonderful quotation here that I'd love for you to respond to. A student says, "It seems that waiting is what we do. We wait for class, we wait for tests, we wait for college acceptance, for graduation, for vacation, for nicer clothes, for new iPods, for whatever." If this is true, does Beckett mean that waiting gets in the way of what we really should be doing with our lives?
Oh, there's a good question.
But I think it's not so much waiting. Of course, the play is about waiting. He said it has to do with hope. This boy hopes for an iPod. This boy hopes for getting into college and so on. So he's full of hopes all the time. You have to work for your hopes somehow. You have to live up to the point where it may happen and not giving up. And that's what these two guys do, basically. They don't give up. Even when the boy says he doesn't come today, Vladimir says, but he will surely come tomorrow. I mean, there is this hope he will come tomorrow. He doesn't give up. There's one moment where he said, I can't go on, and then he looks back and he as if he's scared of himself, and he says, what have I said, you see? And then the boy arrives, a little boy arrives from somewhere, and there is the hope, and then the dialogue with the boy. So I think all these, I would say it this way, I'm not waiting for something better to come, or something worthwhile to come, something which I wish to come. I hope for it, yeah. All the time.
And is it this optimism that's at the heart of the play that enables you to do performance after performance and stick with it as long as you have?
Moi?
Optimism.
You're the great optimist in the play.
Yeah, I suppose Vladimir is the great. I mean, Vladimir is, he's associated with the tree and the sky. In this particular production, at the end of each act, where one character says, well, shall we go? And the other says, yes, let's go. And it's reversed, the other act. Walter has us, indeed Beckett probably had them, looking at, Vladimir looks up, and then there's the blackout, and Estragon looks down. Estragon's associated with the earth, with the stone, with worldly things, with food, with needs. Vladimir's associated with the head, with the tree, the mind, the optimism. But Estragon has also had a bit of learning somewhere in the past. He misquotes Shelley, his Ode to the Moon, and he, poet, has read the Bible. He's been there, he's done that, he's read the books, and he's dismissed it all as not rubbish, but not relevant to a situation. Vladimir is the more optimistically naive in a way, but at the same time, he's like a kind of a mother to him. He gets him when he's down. But there are times in the play where Vladimir's down, and Estragon is like the mother hen and says, here, you look out there, and so on. So they're not completely, what was the great thing that Beckett once said to Peter Woodthorpe? He said, it's all about Peter Woodthorpe, who played the original Estragon in the first English language production in London in 1955. Was in the back of a taxi with Beckett one day, and he said, Sam, everybody's asking me what this play is about. can you please tell me what this play is about? What'll I say to them? He's only 23 at the time, and he says, symbiosis. Tell them it's all about symbiosis or whatever. So he didn't know what that meant, but he told everybody it was about symbiosis, which of course is interdependency on one another, which of course it is about. In one word, that's what it's about. So, but of course it's about so many things, you know.
But that's repeated in the Pozzo-Lucky relationship. You know, Lucky begins the play as a slave and ends up as a servant. Pozzo begins the play as the character of domination, ends up as you know, in the wheelchair or on the Zimmer flame being led along by. You know, Pozzo to that extent has gone through the whole gamut of life and has become utterly dependent. He is absolutely without function unless somebody's there to change his incontinence pads. You know, he's
two of the great symbols in the play, physically, for me, are that I put the rope in his hand, my rope around my neck, and I mind him. I end up as his minder, but I look after him, and it's a human thing. Yeah. And the other beautiful one is that they hold hands. He takes him by the hand and he brings him. Yeah. I mean, I saw a dreadful picture in a paper one time of a little 7-year-old boy with his little brother in some, I don't know what it was, some area of devastation or famine or something. But he had him by the hand, and the two of them, the size of them, they were just walking into nothing. And every time they take hands and walk somewhere, they're going on. Those little boys had the instinct within them to seek, to go on. And that's at the heart of their relationship and their relationship. Our need for one another, supporting one another, going on.
Pozzo says, right, you know, what do you do when you fall far from help? We wait till we can get up, then we go on. It's that we will go on. We go. It is that hope, that the possibility that if you go on, there is always hope. Even Pozzo, blind, useless, lost everything, lost even a sense of time. That is part of the human condition. That's what makes us survive. What makes us survive in time of war, in times of famine, in times of personal distress. We go on, which is, you know, to my mind, the strongest phrase in the whole of Beckett. That what makes us what we are is our belief that we can go on, no matter what.
Do you think God sees me?
You must close your eyes.
God have pity on me.
And me.
On me, on me! Pity on me! What is it? Who is it? Is it Godot?
At last. Reinforcements at last.
Help. Is it Godot?
We were beginning to weaken. Now we're sure to see the evening out.
Help.
We are no longer alone. Waiting for the night. Waiting for Godot. Waiting. All evening we have struggled unassisted. Now it's over. It's already tomorrow.
Help.
Time flows again already. The sun will set. The moon will rise. And we away from here.
Pity.
Poor Pozzo.
I knew it was him. Who? Godot.
But it's not Godot.
It's not Godot?
It's not Godot.
Who is it?
It's Pozzo.
Here, help me up.
He can't get up.
Let's go.
We can't.
Why not?
We're waiting for Godot. Oh, yes. Perhaps he's another bone for you.
Bone?
Chicken, do you not remember?
It was him.
Yes.
Ask.
Perhaps we should help him first.
To do what?
To get up.
He can't get up?
He wants to get up.
Let him get up.
He can't.
Why not?
I don't know.
We should ask him for the bone first. Then if he refuses, we leave him there.
You mean we have him at our mercy?
Yes.
And that we should subordinate our good officers to certain conditions?
What?
That seems intelligent, all right. But there's one thing I'm afraid of.
What?
That Lucky might get going all of a sudden. Then we'd be bollocksed.
Lucky?
He's the one who went for you yesterday.
I tell you, there was 10 of them.
No, before that, the one that kicked you.
Oh, is he there?
As large as life. For the moment, he is inert. But he might run amok any minute.
Help! Suppose we gave him a good beating, the two of us.
You mean if we fell on him in his sleep?
Yes.
That seems a good idea, all right. But could we do it? Is he really asleep? No, the best would be to take advantage of Pozzo's calling for help in anticipation of some tangible return.
But suppose...
Let us not waste our time in idle discourse. Let us do something while we have the chance. It's not every day that we are needed. Not indeed that we personally are needed. Others would meet the case equally well, if not better. To all mankind they were addressed, those cries for help still ringing in our ears. But at this place, at this moment of time, all mankind is us.
No.
Whether we like it or not. Let us make the most of it before it's too late. Let us represent worthily for once the foul brood to which a cruel fate consigned us. What do you say? It is true that when with folded arms we weigh the pros and cons, we are no less a credit to our species. The tiger bounds to the help of his congeners without the least reflection. Or else he slinks away into the depths of the thickets. But that is not the question. What are we doing here? That is the question. And we are blessed in this, that we happen to know the answer. Yes, in this immense confusion, one thing alone is clear. We are waiting for Godot to come.
Oh, yes.
Or for night to fall. We have kept our appointment, and that's an end to that. We are not saints, but we have kept our appointment. How many people can boast as much?
Billions.
You think so?
I don't know.
You may be right.
Well...
All I know is that the hours are long under these conditions, and constrain us to beguile them with proceedings which... how shall I say? Which may at first sight seem reasonable, until they become a habit. You may say it is to prevent our reason from foundering, no doubt. But has it not long been straying in the night without end of the abyssal depths? That's what I sometimes wonder. You follow my reasoning?
We are all born mad. Some remain so.
Help! I'll pay you.
How much?
£1.
It's not enough.
I wouldn't go so far as that.
You think it's enough?
No, I mean so far as to assert that I was weak in the head when I came into the world. But that is not the question.
£2.
We wait. We are bored. No, don't protest. We're bored to death. There's no denying it. Good. A diversion comes along, and what do? We let it go to waste. Come, let's get to work. In an instant, all will vanish. And we'll be alone once more in the midst of nothingness.
Well, I was struck very much hearing your Irish accents, because I've seen only American productions, and it struck me that that perhaps there's something of the native Irish character somewhere in this play that Americans might not be aware of, perhaps in the nature of the comedy and the nature of the message that's being sent. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well,
is that true?
I would field that to Walter, because he is the man who has had to put up with us in this. And I'd love to know his answer about that.
I think the first two lines, nothing to be done, I'm beginning to come around to that opinion. I think that's very Irish.
What do you mean by that?
I don't know, but that was my experience. Really, in Ireland, the people laughed about this line. They never laughed in Germany about it, in German, and it is laughable. It was a laugh last night.
And don't ask me what they are, but there are certain moments, certain lines, certain sequences in the play that are idiomatically Hiberno English. And it's not Irish, because it's not the Irish language, but it's the phrasing, the sound, the sense of phrases become colloquial for Irish actors that would not be so for others. And he also slips in the odd little Irish phrase. I mean, in Endgame, for instance, you're a bit of all right, a smithereen. A smithereen is a decidedly Irish phrase. We must remember that he translated the play from his own French into his English.
Yes.
And his English was not the English of England; it was the English of Ireland, which is a slightly different thing.
Barry, what about you? Any particular way you prepared yourself, or?
We're often asked in America, particularly, and it's to do with the whole Stanislavski tradition and so on. And how do you actually research the sort of the nature of your character and what you did for breakfast and so on and so forth? It's not like that. It all happens when it happens. There is no real background to this character. It's not naturalistic in the sense. It's not like doing, say, an Arthur Miller play or something like that. It's completely different. It's a different, I suppose it's like abstract painting as opposed to figurative painting, or there are certain types of music which, I mean, music is the most abstract of the arts, but at the same time there is some music which has a certain type of traditional form to it, and we can recognize it as such because of the tradition and so on, whereas there are other things that are much more abstract and it just is what it is, and you assimilate it or you don't. And I think in a way Beckett is like that. You just trust it. And people are always asking, you know, there's this notion about the Beckett estate or doing things exactly the same way, that there's no freedom for actors in doing Beckett. I find totally the opposite. I mean, you can have an infinite amount of ways of singing a particular song, an infinite amount of ways of playing a Beethoven string quartet or whatever. They're playing the same notes, but each production of Waiting for Godot or Endgame or Happy Days will have a different set, will have different actors doing it in their way. And if you're true to the spirit of the piece, there's an infinite amount of variety in the way you can do it. So, but to go back to your original question about how you prepare for it, I don't really know how to answer that question other than everybody will prepare in their own way. There's no mystery to it. I mean, there's no one way. There's always a mystery to it in a sense.
Yes.
With dealing with art of any kind, but the more you talk about it, the more highfalutin it gets, and you just get back to actually doing the play. You discover it in the rehearsal room, basically. You discover the dynamic for this particular... It will never be the same with us guys doing it. It will never be the same as other guys doing it, and that'll be there. Even if two of us were in another production with two other guys, it would be a different dynamic.
I think it really stands in the way to create a character, you know. I have taken notes over 20 years, don't create characters. I mean, in the traditional sense, in the method acting way, for example, I think it would be fatal to create characters. You can rely on the text, you can rely on the relationships, on the basics, you see, and then you have to open yourself, and that's what the actors have to do, open yourself to the script and to the text and to the implications of the text and the play, and otherwise, for me, it doesn't work at all if I ask the actors to create fancy characters. You see. Even Pozzo, we can say Pozzo. My impression always is he tries to join the wrong party. You see, so he imposes on people. It's like somebody coming into a theater canteen, and he is, let us say, a lawyer or a businessman, and he wants to make friends with theater people. You know, it is mostly fatal. He is meant to fail. You see, and that's what Pozzo does. He fails all the time to be friends with them, to pass his time and so on. And but that is not. That doesn't mean that we have to make him a lawyer, you know, as a character or whatever that would be. I don't know.
Yes.
I think without really wanting to be facetious, the simple answer with this play is, to paraphrase Noel Coward, you learn the lines and don't bump into the tree. That's what it is. When you know it, and you've learnt both the words and the music and the dance, that's what you do. And as Walter says, your own instincts, your own self will inform the rest of it.
So Beckett belongs to the world. That was the thing I was trying to think of when I lost my train of thought. Yeah.
We finally got that.
Beckett belongs to the world. It doesn't matter if you're Irish or English or what you are.
Yes.
He belongs to the world.
Yes. Yes. Well, thank you so much for being here with us today, and having seen the production and knowing the kinds of physical and mental demands that it makes on all of you, to have taken the time to talk about it, to talk about what is essentially impossible to talk about. We really appreciate, because this is an amazing play, and you make it accessible to, as you say, to generations of people who will enjoy it. So thank you so much for being here with us today. That's all the time we have for today. Thanks for tuning in to the Kennedy Center Performing Arts series. I'd like to thank the artists who have taken the time to be here and share with us. I'd also like to give a special thank you to the George Washington University School of Media and Public Affairs for hosting us today. If you'd like more information about this program or other programs in the Kennedy Center Performing Arts series, you may contact us by using the email address on the screen. We'd love to hear from you and answer your questions. Thank you for being with us.
Meet the artists after the show. You and your students can ask questions of the artists after each broadcast by emailing us at distancelearning@kennedy-center.org. Don't forget to visit us online. There you'll find dozens of archived programs from previous seasons, additional resources including music and video clips, and study guides. Experience some of the most celebrated and talented artists, such as members of the National Symphony Orchestra, the Suzanne Farrell Ballet, the Billy Taylor Trio, Sweet Honey in the Rock, cast members from Ragtime, and many more. The Kennedy Center Performing Arts Series, bringing the arts to your classroom.